What's up, everybody? Mike here with Truth Awakening. All are welcome. On today's episode, we're talking about true happiness. Where is it? Have you found it? So I want to take a couple steps back because today, while I was cutting the ranch, I was trying to figure out how do I want to approach this. I have the answer, but I think if I just come out and say it, most people will go, yeah, duh. And then some people will go, impossible. So before I just lay it all out there, I want to take a couple steps back and I want to use my own life experiences to kind of paint a broader picture of what true happiness is. And it's me taking a couple steps back all the way to my childhood. And I want to relay a couple of things that have happened throughout my childhood, into my teenage years, and then into my adulthood years, because there's a pattern. And that pattern kept me away from true happiness. I would touch into it, I would dabble with it, put my foot in there, get comfortable with it, and then I self-sabotage or tell myself I'm not worthy or what have you. Kind of hinting and alluding to what it is. But anyways, so let's say when I was growing up, what is something that's real popular for kids that are in the first or second grade? Coloring, right? Everybody's coloring. That's your thing. And growing up, my mom would always buy me like the smallest pack. Like, I don't know what it was. Maybe you can tell me in the comments. Like a 10 or a dozen crayons, right? And then you had like a 25 pack and then a 50 and then 100. Well, I would always get the smaller pack. And, before I started going to school, that's all that I knew. It was all good. But then I went to school and I saw that some kids had the 25 pack, the 25 count pack, or the 50 count pack. And I'm like, man, I really wish I could have that. Man, if I had that, I would be real happy. Oh man, that's all I need to feel good about myself. And then probably in about like the second or third grade, I finally talked my mom into buying me the bigger pack. I was like, look, Mom, this pack is only like $3 more. When Dad looks at the receipt, he's not going to know any better. Just get it for me. And she was like, you're right, I'll get it. So she bought me the 100 count pack. And then my dad was like, Jesus Christ, why do these crayons cost so much? Well, I got him the biggest pack. Well, why'd you do, it goes to show, like, some people have that scarcity mentality, right? For me, I wouldn't even think twice. My kid was like, which pack you want? Obviously the 100, you have more options, whatever, right? There's different perspectives to it. But for me as a child, stop, Ruby Jean. For me, it's the ranch dog crying. Go on, go. You gotta be quiet. You gotta be quiet. If you can be quiet, you can hang out. It's a good girl. It's a good girl. Now, here's the test, a life lesson test. If I'm petting her right now, if you can't see me. If I stop and she starts whining more, that means when you give it an inch, they take a mile. And that's a whole different video. Okay, that's it. Go on. Hey guys, I'm sorry. There's noise in the background. There's a road. People are driving like 65 miles per hour. There's a stream behind you. I'm in Wyoming. I'm on a ranch. There's horses. It's going to be kind of loud. There's going to be noises. Bear with me. Be flexible. Anyways, I'm sorry. Let me back up a little bit. But anyways, so I got the biggest pack. I'm like, oh, I feel complete. And then I get to school and everybody's like, oh man, you got the hugest pack of crayons. It's awesome. Oh my God, Mike, that's the biggest crayon. And my little ego began to form. And I was like, yeah, I got all the crayons. And then just because of my upbringing and what have you. I was like, man, I don't need all these crayons. And everybody wants my crayons. Well, you know what? My dad sells stuff because he would always have garage sales. I'll sell this. So I started selling crayons to kids at school at like second or third grade. And they're, like, hey, yeah, 25 cents for this one, 10 cents for that one, 5 cents. Give me a penny. I'll take it. Give me whatever. Right? I was like in second, third grade hustling. Oh, but it was all innocent in nature, right? Wasn't trying to be malicious towards other kids. I was just reflecting what I saw in a parent, if you catch my drift. Anyways, so that ended. And then what comes next when kids get to like 10 years old? What are they all into? Video games. Oh man. If my friend has a new video game system, man, I want it. Man, everything would be great if I could just have that new video game system and the same games that they have. Well, that all happened, and I had temporary happiness, but that was it. And then it went away, and then the next thing came. See, there was a pattern. And then, like, anybody can relate to this one, clothing. There's only a few people that when they grow up, they're wearing the same stuff all the time. And my hat goes off to you, right? No, I tip my hat to you, excuse me. Because like those kids that walked around in like Hawaiian shirts and cut off blue jeans and they kept that the rest of their life, like good on you, man. You're like, this is what's comfy. I don't care what's in style. Like, this is me. You're being genuine and authentic to yourself instead of buying whatever narrative was floating around and what other kids were doing, right? So there's a lot to learn from somebody like you. And a lot of people pointed and laughed and made fun of people like that. Oh my gosh, it should be the opposite. But anyways, growing up as a teenager, oh man, I wanted what was in style. I fell for it a little bit. There was at times where I wanted a certain shirt that was popular or whatever. But at the same time, I had my own style, especially in my later years in high school. Like, I wanted the dress shirt with the slacks and the dress shoes. Like, nobody dressed like that going to high school, but I was like, seeing it in magazines as a kid, I kind of idolized that. And I was like, if for me to have true happiness, I have to be like that. So it was kind of like me manifesting that in a sense and actually doing that. And then come to realize that's not even my style. Flannels are, and then maybe down the road that this may not be my style, and that's okay to change and do whatever, man. Figure out who you are as a person, right? But there's a pattern, right? It didn't complete me. It wasn't true happiness. Then we move on to adult life. No, ma'am. We move on to adult life, right? And then we see the same patterns we had as a child now as an adult. And for me, it was like, man, I always wanted a really nice truck when I grew up, when I became an adult, and I can afford it. And I joined the military. I was overseas for like 3 years. I saved a ton of money. And then when I came back, who you think bought a truck? Brand new truck. This dude. And it was good, and I was living that high for a certain amount of time. And then I started to self-sabotage, and I lost the truck. And I went from like a really nice truck probably one of the nicest trucks on the market that you could buy at the time, to a used Prius, right? And I did it to myself. When I look back, I did it all to myself. But there's like that temporary high, and then I self-sabotage, and then I lost it. Then, growing up as a kid, I used to do landscaping, and I was like, man, when I get a house, I'm gonna deck it out. I'm gonna do everything to it, right? Because there's stuff that I can't do at this house because it's my dad's house. It's my mom's house. I can't mess with it. Not as much. And we didn't have money to. But then, hey, 25 years old, I moved to Texas. I get shore duty. Oh boy. Bought me a house. And I did everything to it. Every little thing you could think of. I decked out the landscaping, redid the kitchen, and it wasn't in a way to like, oh, I want to impress people. It was like I just always had that dream and I wanted to execute that dream. And then I got it all. I had it all decked out. The garage was done with the LEDs, the epoxy floors, the metal cabinets. I painted that house like twice. Did like a pondless stream in the backyard, probably about 20 foot, and then it went down to like a built-in fireplace around a retaining wall. Like I spent like a good 5 years building all this stuff out. And then I built a furniture set for my bedroom, and then I built a kitchen table for the living room that fit perfectly. And I was like, oh, I'm done. And then I graduated college. I got out of the military, and then 2 years later, I graduated college. And then I was like, oh man, I feel a void. I'm not happy anymore. This doesn't seem right. And then thankfully, I was listening to my intuition. I was able, and I don't say this to boast, I'm showing you how when you flow with life and you're honest with yourself. This was the first time that I was actually honest with myself on a big life decision that I could have easily went the other direction, right? And who knows what I would be doing now. But long story short, we sold our house at the top of the market. We bought an RV, and now we travel the country, right? And we're from Texas, and now we're in Wyoming, and we're traveling around. We're going to be in Florida in a couple months, and it's lovely. It's a beautiful life that my wife and I has created together. And thankfully, I was able to let all that stuff go that I had, right? Because at one point I was like, man, I can't wait to have kids, and then for them to go, man, Dad, I can't believe you did all this by yourself. Well, most of it. And yeah, no, I let all that go. It is what it is. And then when I got into the RV, I remember right before getting into the RV, I was like, dear God, and I don't pray like this now, and there's nothing wrong with praying like this or putting out that energy, whatever you want to call it. But at the time I was like, dear God, please, please allow me to move and sell this house and to save money and to make money and to get in an RV and just go out to the closest lake. That's all I wanted. Well, all that happened. And then we get there and I start feeling it again. Oh, I'm not complete. I'm not whole. I feel a void. And partially some of it was self-sabotaging. I started to question things like, do I deserve this? Who am I? And then at the same time, this is the time when I really started to think about creating something more that helps support people, like Truth Awakening. And I started writing a book, and all these things happen. But every time I came to that notion of, do I deserve this and that, I stopped myself. I said, no, not going to do that this time. You did that your whole life to certain aspects, and it's time to stop and live in your power, your divinity, your sovereignty. There's nothing that should restrict you from living your best life. And I started to live by that. And that's what leads me to the answer. Sorry, that was maybe a long rant for some, but I wanted to paint that full picture for you, because the true answer to true happiness is the happiness within, specifically feeling peace. Feeling peace within will dictate your entire reality to a certain extent, maybe fully, who knows. That's a whole different conversation that I'll have. But yeah, listening to that inner peace and you get that inner peace by having acceptance. And you start walking through life, instead of seeing all the negative aspects, you feel this overwhelming love of being blessed with everything, right? Being able to breathe, being able to see, to hear, to taste, to touch, to smell, We take for granted what we would call the simplest of things for granted. And they're actually the most valuable possessions we may have, which is the five senses. We overlook them all the time, and there's some people that don't have some of those qualities, those traits, right? But here's the deal. There's something beyond that than just the five senses, the materialistic world. It's the internal world, right? It's how you are energetically interacting with the world. Are you a angry, frustrated, overwhelmed person? Are you a happy, considerate, mindful, conscious person? Well, Mike, you're judging. No, I'm just calling it out how it is because I've been both. I've been on both sides of the aisle. And they both serve a purpose. They won't ever go away. We live in a duality, right? You have good and evil. And guess what? It's not just black and white. It's not either or. You have everything in between. It's nuanced. It's multifaceted. But anyways, that's where it's at. It's finding that inner peace. And I hope this message resonates with you. And other than that, peace on.